On a warm summer afternoon, the sun hung high in the sky, casting golden light across the quiet streets of a small town. The air was thick and still, carrying the faint scent of grass, dust, and the occasional waft of food from nearby homes. A young girl, barely 13, walked slowly along the sidewalk. Her shoes were worn thin, the soles patched with tape that had long lost its stickiness, and her clothes were faded from months of wear. Her backpack hung loosely from one shoulder, stuffed with a few ragged notebooks and a thin blanket that smelled faintly of dust and old laundry. She had been on her own for as long as she could remember, moving from one abandoned street corner to another, scavenging for food, odd jobs, and whatever kindness strangers might offer. The girl's stomach had been growling for hours. She had skipped breakfast that morning and had nothing to eat for lunch. Every step she took reminded her of the emptiness gnawing at her insides. She had learned to suppress her hunger most of the time, but today it seemed impossible. Every smell of bread, every aroma of something cooked, made her stomach twist harder, reminding her of the meals she rarely got. As she turned a corner, she noticed a small park tucked between two rows of houses. The park was simple, with a few benches, a swing set, and a patch of grass that was worn down from children running across it. On one of the benches sat a man in his early 30s. He had a calm, gentle expression, and his tired eyes told stories of late nights and early mornings. He was eating a sandwich, taking his time, savoring each bite, oblivious to the girl watching from a distance. The girl hesitated, her pride and fear wrestling with the hunger that urged her forward. She had approached people before, asking for small amounts of food or spare change, but most times she had been ignored or scolded. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest as she took a deep breath, trying to summon the courage to ask. "Sir," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "could I maybe have some of your leftovers?" She kept her eyes lowered, not wanting to see rejection in his face, but also desperate to see any trace of kindness. The man looked up, his eyes softening as they met hers. He could see the weariness etched on her small face, the way her clothes hung loosely from her thin frame, and the tired sadness in her eyes. Instead of anger or annoyance, he felt a sudden pang of empathy. "Come here," he said gently, patting the empty space on the bench beside him. The girl froze for a moment. No one had ever invited her to sit with them without first asking for something in return or shooing her away. Slowly, cautiously, she moved closer and sat down on the edge of the bench, still holding her hands tightly in her lap. The man smiled, not in a condescending way, but with a warmth that made her feel, for a fleeting moment, safe. "I'm sorry I don't have much," he said softly, "but you don't have to just take scraps from me." He got up from the bench and walked toward the small food cart near the park entrance. The girl's eyes widened in surprise. She had expected him to just hand her the remaining crumbs of his sandwich, not to go out and get more food. Her heart raced with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. When he returned, he carried 2 steaming plates of food. He set one in front of her with a gentle smile. "Here, this is for you. Eat while it's hot." She looked down at the plate, unsure if it was real, unsure if she was allowed to accept it. But the smell was irresistible, and her stomach roared in response. With trembling hands, she picked up the fork and took a bite. The warmth and flavor of the food filled her mouth and, for a brief moment, chased away the emptiness she had carried for so long. As they ate, the man spoke softly, asking her about herself in a way that was gentle and non-intrusive. "Where do you live?" he asked. She hesitated, not used to anyone asking without judgment. Slowly, she explained that she didn't have a home, that she moved from place to place and sometimes had to sleep in the park or under bridges. She spoke quietly, afraid that talking too much might annoy him or make him think less of her. He listened patiently, nodding and occasionally asking a question or two to show he was genuinely interested. "That must be hard," he said finally. "I can't imagine how difficult it must be to carry so much on your own." She looked at him, surprised by the kindness in his words. People usually avoided her, made her feel invisible, or treated her with disdain. This man was different. He treated her like a person, not a problem. For a moment, the girl allowed herself to forget her hunger, her fear, and her loneliness. She focused on the simple act of sharing a meal with someone who seemed to genuinely care. The man didn't ask for anything in return. He didn't lecture her or tell her she should be doing something differently. He simply offered kindness and understanding. After the meal, the girl felt lighter, not just in her stomach but in her heart. She realized that someone, even a stranger, could see her struggles and respond with compassion. The man packed up the leftover food and smiled at her again. "You're welcome to come here anytime you need a meal," he said softly. "I'll always try to help when I can." The girl nodded, unsure of how to respond, but grateful for the offer. As she walked away, she felt a strange sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. The simple act of being seen, of being treated with dignity, had left a mark on her. She realized that even in a world that often ignored people like her, there were those who would extend a hand, not out of obligation but out of genuine care. That evening, she found a quiet spot near the park and sat down, thinking about the day. She replayed the image of the man buying food for her, the warmth of the meal and the way he had spoken to her. It was a small gesture, but for her it meant the world. It made her feel human again, reminded her that she was worthy of kindness and attention. The girl closed her eyes, letting herself imagine a life where she didn't have to worry about where her next meal would come from, where people didn't look at her with suspicion or disdain. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better, that maybe there were people who would believe in her, who would care enough to help her without expecting anything in return. And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park, the girl felt something she had almost forgotten: trust. Trust that not everyone in the world would hurt her, that not all adults would ignore her struggles, and that kindness could come from the most unexpected places. The encounter with the single dad had changed something inside her. It had planted a seed of hope, a belief that maybe life wasn't just about surviving, but about finding moments of connection, care, and understanding. As she finally got up and walked toward the streetlights, she clutched her backpack a little tighter, feeling stronger, lighter, and somehow more visible in a world that often overlooked her. And though she didn't know what tomorrow would bring, she knew that this afternoon would stay with her forever, a reminder that compassion could shine even in the darkest corners of life. The following morning, the girl woke up with the memory of the previous day still fresh in her mind. She had found a quiet corner under a bridge to rest, and though the hard ground pressed against her back, she felt lighter, almost as if the warmth of the man's kindness had stayed with her through the night. Her stomach was still empty, but her spirit felt nourished. She decided to make her way to the park again, curious and hopeful, though a part of her wondered if he would remember her. As she approached, she saw him there, sitting on the same bench as yesterday, reading a small notebook while his son played nearby. The boy was energetic, full of life, running in circles with a small toy car in his hands. The girl hesitated for a moment at the edge of the park, unsure if she should approach. The man noticed her immediately, waving her over with a warm smile. "Good morning," he called, his voice gentle. She nodded, moving closer, and he gestured for her to sit beside him. Today, instead of a single sandwich, he had prepared a small picnic on the bench. There were 2 plates with scrambled eggs, slices of bread, and a few pieces of fruit. The girl's eyes widened. She had not eaten eggs in a long time, and the sight of fresh fruit made her mouth water. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she took the plate. "You didn't have to," she murmured. "I wanted to," he replied simply, not making it feel like a favor or a lesson. "Eat before it gets cold." His son noticed her and ran over, holding out a small toy car. "You can play with this," the boy said, smiling shyly. The girl hesitated but took the toy, her fingers brushing against his. It was a small gesture, but it made her feel included, part of something she had not experienced in years. As they ate, the man asked her gently about herself. "Do you go to school?" he asked. She shook her head. Her life had been unstable. Moving from place to place, she hadn't had a chance to attend regularly. She felt embarrassed thinking he might judge her, but he only nodded, not with disappointment but understanding. "It's never too late," he said softly. "There are always ways to catch up." The girl looked at him, curious. "How do you know so much about life?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "I've had my own struggles. Being a parent is hard. Being alone is harder, but kindness makes it a little easier." His words were simple, but they resonated deeply. For the first time in her life, she felt someone truly understood what it was like to struggle and survive in a world that could be indifferent. They talked for a while longer. She told him about how she spent her nights under bridges or in abandoned buildings, how she often went to sleep hungry, and how it felt like the world had forgotten her. He listened carefully, never interrupting, offering only small, comforting words when needed. His son, who had been playing nearby, occasionally joined the conversation, asking innocent questions and making her laugh. She hadn't felt laughter so freely in a long time. The warmth in the man's home and the kindness in his gestures made her feel safe and accepted. After the meal, the man stood up and suggested a small walk through the park. The girl followed, holding the toy car, feeling a lightness she hadn't known in months. He showed her a small flower bed, pointing out how the flowers had grown despite the summer heat. "Even when things are tough, life finds a way," he said. She thought about her own life, how hard it had been, and realized that maybe there was a way forward for her too. He took her to a small community center nearby, explaining that they sometimes had programs for children and teenagers who didn't have a home or regular school. She listened intently, imagining what it would be like to learn in a safe environment, to have books and teachers who cared. For the first time, she felt a spark of hope for her future, something she hadn't felt in years. Over the next few days, she continued to meet him at the park. Each time, he offered food, conversation, and a sense of normalcy she had almost forgotten existed. He never pressured her or treated her as if she owed him anything. His son, growing more comfortable, began to share his toys and stories, and the girl felt an unusual sense of belonging. She started looking forward to these small interactions, noticing the little joys, a laugh, a shared story, a piece of fruit that slowly built a foundation of trust. One afternoon, as they sat on the bench, the man asked her gently, "Would you like to learn some new things? I have some books at home and we could read together." The girl blinked, surprised. No one had ever offered her an opportunity to learn just for the sake of learning. Her heart raced with excitement and apprehension. She nodded slowly, unsure but eager. "Tomorrow, then," he said with a smile, and she left the park feeling lighter than she had in months. That evening, the girl found a quiet corner to rest, her mind racing with thoughts of the new possibilities. The idea that someone believed in her, cared for her, and wanted to help her grow was almost too much to comprehend. She thought about her own strength, how she had survived all this time, and realized that she didn't have to face the world entirely alone anymore. There was someone who would guide her, who would share kindness without expecting anything in return. The days turned into a week, and the girl found herself visiting the park every morning. She and the man read together, shared meals, and laughed with his son. Each interaction built her confidence slowly but surely. She began to imagine a life beyond the park, beyond the streets, a life where she could dream and learn and grow. The simple act of kindness had become a lifeline, connecting her to a world that had previously seemed unreachable. The man never spoke of charity or pity. He never made her feel like a burden. He treated her with dignity and respect, showing her that she mattered, that her life was worth investing in. The girl, in turn, began to open her heart, trusting someone for the first time in years. She realized that human connection, even with strangers, could be powerful and transformative. As the sun set each evening, she would watch it from the park bench, thinking about the small victories of the day, a completed page in a book, a shared laugh, a meal that wasn't just eaten but savored. Each day brought new lessons, not just from books, but from the simple acts of care and attention the man showed her. She began to feel a sense of hope that had been absent for so long, a belief that maybe life had more to offer than survival alone. And so, with each passing day, the girl's world began to expand. The park was no longer just a place to beg for scraps, but a place of learning, laughter, and trust. The man and his son became anchors in her life, steady points of support in a world that had been unpredictable and harsh. The warmth of their gestures, the patience in their words, and the consistency of their care began to transform her perspective, planting seeds of hope, courage, and resilience that she would carry forward, shaping the way she saw herself and the possibilities ahead. Over the next few weeks, the girl's visits to the park became a routine, a part of her life she had come to cherish. Each morning she would wake up early, brush off the dust from her clothes, and hurry to the bench where the man and his son waited. The man had become more than a kind stranger. He had become a mentor, a guide, someone she could rely on in a world that had often seemed cold and uncaring. His son, energetic and full of curiosity, had become a friend, someone who welcomed her with a smile and a playful shout that made her heart lighten. The man began to involve her in small projects. One day, he showed her how to plant flowers in a small corner of the park that had been empty and neglected. She had never had her own little space to care for something living, and as she dug into the soil and planted seeds, she felt a sense of pride and responsibility that was new to her. "These will grow," he said, placing his hand on her shoulder. "Just like you will. With care and attention, things can flourish." She smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun, a feeling of hope that grew with each word he spoke. The boy joined in, his laughter ringing as he ran between the small flower beds, carrying watering cans and sharing stories about imaginary adventures. The girl began to laugh along with him, letting herself feel joy freely, something she had rarely allowed herself to do. In those moments, the worries of hunger, shelter, and the uncertainty of life seemed distant, replaced by the simple happiness of connection and care. One afternoon, as they were planting together, the man asked her gently, "Do you like reading?" She hesitated, unsure what to say. I used to read a little," she admitted, "but I don't have many books." He smiled and handed her a small notebook. "Here, we can start with this. We can write stories, read together, and even share ideas. It's a start." The girl opened the notebook and looked at the blank pages, her mind buzzing with possibilities. She realized that this was more than just an opportunity to learn. It was a chance to express herself, to tell her story in ways she hadn't thought possible. As the days passed, the girl began to grow more confident. She started helping the man with small chores like carrying groceries or tidying up his home when she visited. He never demanded it, never made her feel like she owed him anything. He simply showed her that being part of a caring environment meant contributing, sharing, and being valued. Each small task taught her responsibility, patience, and the importance of kindness, not just in receiving it but in giving it too. One rainy afternoon, the girl found herself at the park, drenched and shivering. The man noticed immediately, rushing over with an umbrella and a warm blanket. "Come on," he said, guiding her under the shelter of a nearby tree. He handed her the blanket and offered her a cup of warm tea. The boy shared his small umbrella with her as well, giggling at the sight of her trying to stay dry while holding the cup. The simple act of care, the thoughtfulness behind it, made her feel secure, safe, and seen. During these moments, she shared more of her past, speaking about the nights she had spent alone, the people who had ignored her, and the small moments of fear that accompanied every day. The man listened with patience, never interrupting, never judging. He shared his own struggles too, talking about the challenges of raising a child alone, the fears he carried, and the hope he still nurtured for the future. The girl realized that everyone carried their own burdens, but that didn't prevent them from showing kindness and understanding to others. The boy, too, had grown attached to her. He began asking her to help him with small projects like drawing pictures or building little structures with sticks and leaves. The girl who had once felt invisible and unimportant now felt needed, valued, and loved in her own way. The simple act of being part of a family, even temporarily, transformed her perception of what life could be. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the man turned to her and said softly, "You know, you're stronger than you realize. Life has been hard, but you've faced it with courage. That courage will take you far." The girl looked at him, her eyes glistening. She had never been praised in this way, never been recognized for her resilience. The words filled her with a sense of pride and motivation she had not felt in years. They began discussing her future, small steps she could take to improve her life. He suggested enrolling in evening classes, starting with basic subjects and gradually moving on to more advanced learning. She felt nervous but excited, realizing that someone believed in her potential. The idea of a future filled with possibilities rather than mere survival was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Through these days, the girl's relationship with the man and his son deepened. They laughed, learned, and shared experiences that went beyond mere survival. She began to dream, not just about escaping her current circumstances, but about becoming someone who could give back, someone who could create kindness in the world, just as it had been given to her. She realized that human connection, patience, and genuine care could change lives in ways she had never imagined. One weekend, the man suggested a small trip to a nearby library. The girl hesitated at first, unsure of what to expect, but agreed. At the library, she was surrounded by shelves full of books, each one a door to a new world. She ran her fingers along the spines, feeling excitement and wonder. The man watched her with a smile, knowing that this moment could open doors she had never known existed. As they explored the library, she picked out books on topics she had always been curious about, stories that transported her to different lands and guides that taught new skills. The man encouraged her to ask questions, to explore freely, and to never feel limited by her past. His son sat nearby, flipping through picture books and occasionally sharing his discoveries with her. The experience was magical, filling her with curiosity, inspiration, and hope. Back at the park that evening, they shared a simple meal, talking about the stories they had read and the ideas they had encountered. The girl realized that life could be more than survival. It could be learning, growing, and sharing with others. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the man's unwavering support and the little family that had welcomed her into their lives. Over time, the girl began to notice changes in herself. She became more confident, more expressive, and more willing to dream. The kindness, patience, and guidance of the man and his son had created a safe space for her to grow, to heal, and to imagine a future beyond her struggles. She no longer saw herself as invisible or forgotten. She was seen, valued, and cared for, and that realization transformed her from the inside out. Even in the face of uncertainty, the girl felt a growing sense of stability. The park bench, the shared meals, the laughter with the boy, and the gentle guidance of the man had created a foundation she could rely on. She began to understand that life could be harsh, but it could also be full of small miracles, simple acts of care, and moments of human connection that could change everything. And so, the girl continued to visit the park, learning, laughing, and growing. Each day brought new lessons, new experiences, and new opportunities to feel hope and joy. The bond she had formed with the man and his son had become a source of strength, a reminder that even in a world that could be cruel and indifferent, kindness could thrive, and with it, the possibility of a brighter future. One afternoon, as the warm sun streamed through the trees, the man turned to the girl with a thoughtful expression. He had been watching her progress over the past weeks and noticed how much more confident and comfortable she had become. Her laughter was freer, her eyes brighter, and the small steps she had taken in learning and exploring had begun to transform her into a young person who felt capable of facing challenges. He had been thinking about how he could help her even more, and an idea had formed in his mind. "I have an idea," he said gently, watching her play with his son in the park. "Would you like to come by my house sometimes? We can do your homework there, read together, and even have dinner if you like." The girl paused, startled. The thought of entering a home, of being welcomed inside, was almost unbelievable. Her experiences with adults had mostly been moments of judgment, impatience, or neglect. She looked at him cautiously, unsure if she could trust this offer. Seeing her hesitation, he added softly, "There's no pressure. Only if you feel comfortable. I just want you to have a safe place to learn and grow." She nodded slowly, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. It was a big step, one that required her to trust someone fully. But looking at the warmth in his eyes and the gentle presence of his son, she felt a small spark of courage. She decided to take the chance to step into a space that promised safety, care, and opportunity. The first time she walked into his home, she was cautious, taking in every detail. It was simple and cozy, with shelves of books, small toys scattered on the floor, and photographs on the walls showing smiles of family and friends. She felt a strange mix of awe and nervousness, not used to a place where she could feel welcome and safe. He introduced her to his son in their home, and the boy immediately took her hand, leading her to a small table where they could sit together. "Welcome," he said excitedly. "We can start reading together." The girl smiled shyly, feeling a warmth she had never experienced before. That evening, they shared a meal that was more than just nourishment for her body. It was the first dinner she had eaten in a while where she felt included, where the conversation was warm and where laughter filled the room. The man asked her gently about her day, about the things she had learned and what she enjoyed. He listened intently, offering encouragement and praise without making her feel judged or pressured. She realized that this was more than just a home. It was a place where she could feel safe, valued, and understood. Over the following days, she began visiting regularly. The man would help her with reading, writing, and small school lessons. He encouraged her curiosity, answering questions patiently and guiding her gently when she struggled. His son, always energetic and playful, became a study companion of sorts, often asking questions, sharing discoveries, and creating a sense of camaraderie that made learning enjoyable. For the first time, the girl realized that education could be more than a chore. It could be an adventure, a way to explore the world and imagine new possibilities. As the girl grew more comfortable, the man began introducing small life lessons alongside the academic learning. He showed her how to organize her belongings, care for her personal space, and understand the importance of responsibility. These lessons, simple as they seemed, were building blocks for her growth, teaching her skills she had never been able to practice before. The gentle guidance and consistent support helped her see that she was capable of more than she had believed. One rainy afternoon, they stayed inside, reading by the window as the drops pattered softly against the glass. The man suggested they write a story together, encouraging her to imagine freely and express herself. She hesitated at first, unsure if her ideas were good enough, but he reassured her. "There are no wrong ideas," he said. "Just share what's in your heart." Slowly, she began to write, forming words that told her story, dreams, and hopes. The man guided her, asking questions that helped her expand her thoughts, and the boy chimed in with playful suggestions. By the end of the session, they had created a story filled with imagination, adventure, and warmth, a reflection of the trust and creativity that had blossomed in their shared space. Over time, the girl began to open up more about her life, sharing memories she had kept locked away, fears she had carried silently, and dreams she had once thought impossible. The man listened without judgment, offering comfort and advice when needed. His son, in his innocent curiosity, provided companionship and lightheartedness, helping her laugh and feel joy even in small moments. The home had become a sanctuary, a place where she could heal, learn, and grow without fear or shame. One day, the man suggested a small project. "Why don't we make a little garden outside? We can grow vegetables and flowers, something you can care for and watch grow." The girl eagerly agreed, fascinated by the idea of nurturing something and seeing it thrive. Together, they planted seeds, watered them, and talked about the growth process. The act of caring for the garden mirrored her own growth. Small steps, consistent effort, and patience leading to something beautiful and tangible. As the weeks passed, the girl began to notice changes in herself. She was more confident, her curiosity grew stronger, and she felt a sense of belonging that had been absent for so long. The lessons she learned at home, combined with the experiences in the park, shaped her into a young person capable of resilience, compassion, and hope. She understood that life could be harsh, but it could also be filled with moments of care, learning, and love, provided by those willing to offer kindness without expecting anything in return. The man and his son became her anchor, a steady presence. In a world that had once been unpredictable and harsh, she learned not only academics and practical skills, but also the value of relationships, empathy, and trust. Each day brought small victories, finishing a reading assignment, learning a new word, or seeing the first sprouts in their garden. These victories, though seemingly minor, built a foundation for her future, giving her confidence and a sense of purpose. One evening, as they sat by the garden, the man turned to her and said softly, "You've come a long way, and I'm proud of you. Remember, it's okay to ask for help, to accept kindness, and to believe in yourself. You are capable of wonderful things." The girl felt a surge of gratitude and hope. She realized that her journey had transformed not just because of her own resilience, but because someone had chosen to invest in her, to see her potential, and to provide a safe and nurturing environment. From that day forward, the girl continued to thrive. She embraced learning, nurtured the garden, and shared laughter and stories with the man and his son. The simple act of offering her a place in their home had opened doors she had never imagined, creating a future filled with possibility, hope, and connection. She understood now that kindness could transform lives, and that the love and care of others could help heal wounds, build confidence, and spark dreams that were once out of reach. Her life, once filled with uncertainty and struggle, had become a story of growth, hope, and the incredible power of human connection. As months passed, the girl's life had transformed in ways she could have never imagined. The small acts of kindness, guidance, and companionship from the single dad and his son had grown into a steady foundation for her life. She no longer woke up every day with the fear and uncertainty that had once dominated her thoughts. Instead, she woke with purpose, ready to learn, grow, and embrace the small joys around her. She had become a regular presence in the home, joining the man and his son for meals, study sessions, and simple family routines. Every day was filled with learning and discovery. She learned not only from books but from life itself, the importance of responsibility, patience, and compassion. She helped with household chores, cared for the small garden they had planted together, and shared laughter and stories with the boy. Each task, each shared moment reinforced her sense of belonging and purpose. One afternoon, as she sat on the porch with the man, he asked her gently, "Do you remember when we first met?" She nodded, remembering the nervous, hungry girl who had approached him in the park, unsure if anyone would care. "Look at you now," he said softly. "You've grown so much. You've faced challenges, learned, and even helped create a little happiness around you. That's something very special." She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the sun. It was the warmth of acceptance, validation, and love. The girl had started attending classes at a local community center, something the man had suggested weeks earlier. She was nervous at first, worried that she might not fit in or keep up, but his encouragement had given her confidence. Each day she returned home with stories of what she had learned, the friends she had met, and the little victories she had achieved. The man listened with pride, praising her efforts, and the boy often joined in the excitement, celebrating each success with her. For the first time, education felt like a pathway to opportunity, not a distant or unreachable goal. Through their shared experiences, the girl learned about trust and empathy. She understood that relationships required patience and care, and that kindness could have a ripple effect. She began to apply these lessons not only in her interactions with the man and his son, but also with others she encountered in the community center and the park. Small gestures, a smile, a helping hand, a kind word, became part of her daily life, reflecting the influence of the people who had shown her the power of genuine care. One day, while tending to the garden, the girl realized how much she had changed. The once timid, hungry, and cautious child had grown into a confident, hopeful young girl. She watched the plants they had nurtured together, noticing how they had taken root and flourished under careful attention. It struck her that her own life had grown in much the same way. With support, care, and guidance, she had begun to thrive, creating stability and hope where there had once been uncertainty and fear. The man had also begun to share small life lessons that went beyond academics and chores. He spoke about kindness, honesty, and resilience. He encouraged her to think about her dreams and to take small steps toward them, assuring her that setbacks were a natural part of life. The girl began to dream not just about survival, but about what she could become, imagining possibilities that had once seemed out of reach. She saw education as a bridge to a future she could shape, a way to break free from the limitations that had previously defined her life. In the evenings, they often gathered together to share stories and reflections. The boy would excitedly recount his day, the girl would share her lessons, and the man would offer gentle guidance and encouragement. These simple routines became the threads that wove their lives together, creating a tapestry of trust, love, and mutual support. The girl felt valued, seen, and understood, experiencing a sense of family that she had never known before. One particularly quiet evening, as the sun set behind the houses, the man asked her gently, "Do you feel different now compared to when we first met?" She nodded, her eyes reflecting the depth of her feelings. "I feel safe," she said softly, "and I feel like I can dream. I feel like I matter." The man smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment in knowing that his small acts of kindness had helped her find herself. "You do matter," he said, his voice steady. "And you always will. Remember, your life is yours to shape, and the strength you have inside will guide you." The words resonated deeply, filling her with hope and a renewed sense of purpose. As time went on, the girl began to envision a future where she could help others just as she had been helped. She wanted to be a source of kindness, support, and encouragement for those who, like her, had once felt invisible and alone. The experiences she had shared with the man and his son had taught her the profound impact of compassion and the ways small gestures could transform lives. She dreamed of extending that light to others, creating a cycle of care and hope that could ripple through the world. The man watched her growth with quiet pride. He had witnessed her transformation from a timid, hungry, and cautious girl into a confident, hopeful young individual. He had provided guidance, meals, learning opportunities, and emotional support. But it was her resilience, courage, and willingness to embrace change that had truly driven her progress. The bond they shared had become a source of strength for both of them, a reminder that human connection, empathy, and trust could shape lives in extraordinary ways. One day the girl reflected on her journey, remembering the day she had first asked for leftovers in the park. She had been nervous, hungry, and uncertain, but that simple request had led to a life-changing encounter. She realized that the man's choice to respond with kindness and not judgment had opened a door she could never have opened herself. The impact of that single act of generosity and care had reshaped her world, giving her hope, stability, and a sense of belonging. As she prepared to continue her education and explore new opportunities, she carried with her the lessons of the past months. She understood the importance of perseverance, empathy, and trust. She knew that life would present challenges, but she also knew that she had the strength and support to face them. The man and his son had shown her that even in the darkest moments, human connection and compassion could provide light, guidance, and hope. In the end, the girl realized that her life was no longer defined solely by survival. It was defined by growth, learning, and the relationships that had nurtured her. She had discovered that hope could be found in unexpected places, that kindness could change a life, and that with support, determination, and care, the future held endless possibilities. The bond she had formed with the man and his son had given her the confidence to dream, the courage to act, and the inspiration to carry forward the lessons of love, empathy, and resilience into the rest of her life. And so, the girl's journey continued, no longer alone, no longer uncertain. She had been given more than meals or guidance. She had been given the chance to grow, to heal, and to imagine a life full of promise. Her story was no longer only about survival, it was about transformation, hope, and the extraordinary power of human kindness. Months had passed since the girl had first stepped into the park that hot summer day. Her life had changed in countless ways that she had never imagined possible. The kindness and guidance from the single dad and his son had blossomed into a deep, trusting relationship that had transformed her. She no longer wandered streets with fear and hunger gnawing at her stomach. She now woke each day with purpose, ready to learn, to grow, and to embrace the world around her. Her mornings began with a walk through the park to the man's home. The once timid and cautious girl now greeted him and his son with a confident smile. She had learned how to organize her thoughts, care for her belongings, and even prepare simple meals alongside them. The boy would often run ahead, calling out playful challenges to her, which made her laugh and feel a warmth of connection she had never experienced before. The home had become a sanctuary, a place where she could relax, learn, and discover who she was beyond the hardships of the past. The girl had grown stronger, not just physically, but emotionally. She had learned to express her thoughts, to ask questions, and to explore ideas she had previously been too afraid to voice. The man guided her gently, encouraging her curiosity, praising her successes, and helping her navigate challenges with patience. His son, with his boundless energy and curiosity, had become a companion and playmate, sharing laughter, stories, and small adventures that made learning joyful. One afternoon, as they sat in their small garden, the man spoke to her seriously but gently. "Do you remember when you first came to the park? You were scared and hungry, unsure if anyone would help you." The girl nodded, remembering the fear, the uncertainty, and the vulnerability she had carried that day. "Look at you now," he continued. "You've grown into someone strong, capable, and kind. That strength will guide you in ways you can't even imagine yet." The girl felt a swell of pride and gratitude. She realized that she had not only survived but had begun to flourish, and that the support and trust she had received had made all the difference. The girl had become deeply invested in her education. The man had suggested attending a local community center to continue her studies, and she embraced the opportunity. Each day she returned home filled with stories of lessons learned, new friendships, and small victories. She approached her studies with diligence, taking notes, asking questions, and exploring topics that fascinated her. The man provided guidance, helping her understand concepts and encouraging her to think critically. The boy would occasionally join in, adding a playful curiosity that made learning fun and engaging. Over time, the girl began to develop her own voice. She started writing in journals, documenting her experiences, her dreams, and her reflections. The man encouraged this habit, explaining that writing could be a tool to express feelings, process experiences, and envision the future. The girl found joy in this practice, realizing that her thoughts and stories mattered. Each entry became a reflection of growth, resilience, and hope, capturing the transformation she had undergone since her first day in the park. One rainy afternoon, the girl noticed how the boy became concerned for others around him. When they saw a stray dog shivering in the rain, he immediately offered it shelter under their porch. Inspired by his compassion, the girl joined him, realizing that caring for others, whether human or animal, was a powerful way to express kindness and empathy. The act of helping the dog reinforced her own understanding of responsibility and the impact of small, meaningful actions. The man watched these moments with quiet pride, knowing that the girl had developed not only intelligence and confidence but also empathy and compassion. Her experiences had shaped her into a person capable of understanding the struggles of others and taking meaningful action to support them. He knew that the lessons she had learned went far beyond the classroom. They were lessons of life, resilience, and humanity. One evening, as they gathered for a simple meal together, the man asked the girl about her dreams for the future. She paused, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here, the struggles she had overcome, and the support she had received. Slowly, she began to share her aspirations, to continue learning, to help others in need, and to create opportunities for those who had experienced hardships like her own. The man listened intently, encouraging her vision and explaining that with determination, persistence, and compassion, she could make her dreams a reality. The girl began taking small steps toward these goals. She volunteered at the community center, helping younger children with reading and games, sharing the patience and guidance that she herself had received. She also began participating in small local projects, learning to organize, collaborate, and lead. These experiences reinforced her sense of purpose and strengthened her confidence, showing her that her actions could make a tangible difference in the lives of others. As the months turned into a year, the girl reflected on the transformation she had undergone. She had entered the world as a frightened, hungry child with no sense of belonging. Now she was a confident, compassionate, and capable young individual with a vision for her future. The man and his son had become a family she could rely on, offering guidance, love, and consistency that had been absent from her life before. Through their support, she had discovered the value of trust, patience, and human connection. One day, as they sat in their garden watching the sunset, the man said gently, "You've come so far, and I am proud of you. Never forget that your strength, your kindness, and your determination will carry you forward, no matter what challenges come your way." The girl nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and hope. She realized that the journey was far from over, but now she had the tools, the support, and the courage to navigate whatever life brought. In the evenings, the girl would often reflect on the journey she had taken. She thought about the day she had first approached the man in the park, hungry and uncertain, and how a single act of kindness had changed the course of her life. She understood that transformation did not happen overnight. It came through patience, trust, and consistent care. She also realized that she had a responsibility to pay forward the compassion and support she had received, to be a source of hope and guidance for others who faced struggles similar to her own. The girl's life had become a tapestry of learning, love, and growth. Each day brought new lessons, new challenges, and new moments of joy. She embraced the possibilities ahead, understanding that while life could be difficult, it also held moments of profound beauty and connection. The support of the man and his son had given her the foundation she needed to dream, to strive, and to become the person she was meant to be. As she looked toward the future, she knew that her story was just beginning. The experiences she had shared with the man and his son, the lessons she had learned, and the trust she had built would guide her as she continued to grow, learn, and make a difference in the world. She understood that her journey had transformed her not only in terms of survival, but in terms of hope. compassion, and the ability to create positive change. Her life was no longer defined by fear and uncertainty, but by resilience, purpose, and the extraordinary power of human kindness.